So when we look at the survey sample overall, across the 7 service providers, there was 329 individuals represented. Of these 329, 62 were from CLS. Your response rate was 66%, so pretty much bang on with the response rate achieved for the across all 329. It was 67%. 61% of your sample, so 38 individuals, were represented by proxy respondents. This is compared to 44% of the overall. So, I mean, it's a fairly high proportion at this.
Yeah, we were really paying attention to that yesterday, and seeing that we were the highest for proxies in the figures that you evaluated, and especially the importance that seemed to be tagged to whatever that effect is, right? The proxy scores versus individual self-report. And so we've been thinking about that a lot in terms of, is that simply reflective of the population we support? Because being the organization coming out of institutionalization, some pretty high need people that we continue to support to this day. So did that account for the higher proxy count, and therefore, and how does that affect our results?
There's a few things when you're looking at your quality of life results that we feel are more important to focus on and less important. We feel it's less important to focus on where your scores lie in comparison to someone else, whether that's the aggregate.
Even though we were taught that in school.
I know, as soon as you get two numbers, put them together and see where you lie, right?
It's still important.
We provide the aggregate scores because it's really important to have a context, right, around to look at your results. But I mean, the value isn't in saying we're here, they're there, and especially when those differences are small, when they're not even statistically significant. There's no point in even looking at, you know, that the bars don't line up exactly like this. Really, the value of quality of life, the real value is in incorporating into a quality improvement kind of process and looking at changes of your score over time. So whether that score starts at 3, whether it starts at 5, whether it starts at 7, it's not as important as if you decide to focus on that area, what happens to that score over time? Can we see a trend in it? And this is an area where your team needs to sit down and really have a good look at your quality of life profile and say, does it make sense? Are we surprised by this? Are there areas that we would like to change? Are we happy with the way it looks? And if we would like to make some changes, how are we going to do that? You know, you work with a unique population. There's probably unique characteristics of the individuals, of the context that you're working in, your organizational mandate, things like that. So we need to take those into account when we're considering what areas are we going to target, you know, what areas can we have an impact in. It's probably not all 8 domains, probably not everyone. That's not the best strategy to try and have a big impact on all 8 domains in the first year. That's probably not the route to go, so just really thinking about the whole picture.
One of the interesting things that's really important to us is not only that this instrument, we keep talking about reliability, we're at the reliability stage of looking at it. Does it keep doing, you know, consistently what we think it'll do? But more importantly, is it measuring what we think it's measuring? That had to be established very, very early, and we did a lot of work to do that. But validating a tool continues, and the kind of stuff that we're starting to find out is that this tool is sensitive to policies, programs, and practices. So if you see an emphasis on a particular kind of program, policy, or practice that should promote a higher quality of life in a certain area, we tend to see the scores going up. And that's helping us become a lot more confident that this is a valid tool as well as a reliable tool. So that's very, very important.
Here is your quality of life profile, your quality of life picture. You can see some real trends here for CLS, and that in the first 3 areas, the well-being domains, emotional, physical, material well-being, those are your 3 highest scores. And that's very consistent. That's what's been found, you know, at the aggregate level, and a lot of the service providers in BC and also in Alberta. This is typical. The 2 lowest areas for CLS are social inclusion and self-determination, which is again very typical. It's pretty much what's happening at the aggregate level here, and social inclusion is, I think, the lowest for all of the providers as well. And I think emotional well-being is the highest for everyone. Here's a comparison of your scores with the aggregate, and again, wanting to emphasize that we're not really about comparing those little numbers up there, but looking at the context here. And you can see that the aggregate is represented by the dark blue bars and CLS by the lighter blue bars there. And you follow pretty closely the same patterns as we see in the aggregate, and there's actually no statistically significant differences between those scores. So like when you look at, there's a little difference here, a little difference there, that's really nothing to be concerned about. And actually, the last page of your report, page 9, or page 9, I think, provides the confidence intervals for each of your domains. So while we have, say, for emotional well-being for CLS, the average score is 8.88, in reality, that score could be anywhere between 8.55 and 9.22. So there's a range associated around each of those, if you can kind of picture little bars above and below. So moving forward, these quality of life results, they're not meant to be prescriptive in any way. They're meant as a tool for you, for your organization, as information for you, and it's up to you how you move forward and use them. And of course, the real value of this kind of exercise is in subsequent administration, where over time you can see changes in the quality of life for individuals that you provide supports to. So that's kind of a long-term picture in terms of moving forward. So does anyone have any questions about, or just things that you'd like to discuss about anything we've talked about, any details from your report or anything that Dr. Schlock has presented? Thoughts you'd like to share?
The idea of doing more of what we're talking about may actually not interest you. You may not feel qualified for it. You may kind of feel it's not what I really signed on for. So we've seen a bit of tension around that amongst employees that are worried. Also with families, and understanding what is the social contract that we formed sometimes 30 years ago, and how is that social contract changing? Because you look at the domains we did very, very well on, really that was the social contract. They're leaving the institution, and we want to know that they're safe, secure, well taken care of. So they're not going to end up on the street, we don't want bad things to happen to them, but we know being an institution, that's where nothing happened and bad things. So at least to do this. But it is frightening. So it's the tension with employees, there's the tension between the individual and the family. Because we're a very strong family-centered organization. And sometimes what the individual is asking for is different from what the family's ready for.
Because what the family is asking for are the first 3 domains.
Yeah.
And what the clients are interested in are the low scoring ones.
Right.
And what professionals are interested in are the rights. And so bringing all that into some form of stability is a major challenge, I think.
It sort of brings up something that I'm curious about, and again, there's this, where we are in this project, where everybody is in this project is such that we don't necessarily have this information yet, but I'm very interested to see how paying a lot of attention to some of those areas that there's been a low quality of life result is going to affect the other ones. Are people going to experience a lower quality of life in some of those areas that the typical population would report a lower quality of life in as their rights, inclusion, self-determination increases?
Where we have looked at that question and looked at what is the relationship among these 8 domains, they're highly correlated. And consequently, what you tend to see then is as one goes up, there's a comparable increase in one or more of the others, because they are correlated. And you think about that logically, it makes good sense. If self-determination goes up because people are doing things in the community now because they want to, then social inclusion is going to go up. And if they're doing things that are growth producing, then personal development is going to go up. So they are highly correlated. They're pure in terms of factors, but they still are correlated in the sense that they don't occur independently. They're cumulative.